This is a lab training and safety video for the ME Core CLIA Lab at the Georgia Institute of Technology. The correct attire must be worn at all times in the lab. Lab personnel must wear closed-toe shoes and clothing which fully covers the legs. The correct attire for ME Core CLIA Lab includes an N95. The N95 should be placed correctly over your nose and mouth upon entering the lab. Lab coats should only be worn in the lab, be fully buttoned, and must be removed and hung in the designated area before exiting the lab. Shoe covers are optional. Protective eyewear or a face shield must also be worn. Wash and dry hands before putting on gloves. Lab personnel must double glove upon entering the lab. Please ensure that gloves are not too big as this could lead to contamination. Please remember to remove gloves using the proper technique and discard in the biohazard bin before leaving the lab. Courier boxes containing specimens should be retrieved from the receiving area directly outside of the accessioning lab and placed in the designated CLIA or surveillance area in preparation for unpacking. CLIA specimens must not be mixed with the surveillance samples. Please note that the area shown in this video is for surveillance samples only. The courier boxes should be sprayed with 70% ethanol before opening. Remove the tape from the courier box and record the collection date, time, and location on the whiteboard to be transferred to the Excel specimen receiving log at a later time. The specimen should then be sprayed inside of the bin, then placed on the designated table for sorting, then sprayed with 70% ethanol once again. Spray the empty courier box with ethanol and place it with the other empty boxes to be picked up by the courier at a later time. Prior to opening the specimen bag, inspect the specimen collection tube inside of the bag to check for leaks. If there is a leak, reject the specimen and do not open the bag. After each sample is removed from the specimen bag, tighten the cap, then gently shake the vial to check for beads. If there are no beads, place samples in the rejected box. Visually inspect the volume of the saliva specimen inside the tube without opening the vial. If there is too much volume in the tube, mark the top of the tube with a black dot. If the sample is more than 1/3 below the fill line, place a sample in the rejected box. If all of the acceptance criteria for the sample have been met, place a sample in a vial rack. The number of accepted and rejected samples should be recorded on the whiteboard to be saved in the Excel specimen receipt log at a later time. Create a rejection list for the rejected samples that includes a barcode, initials, and reason for rejection. Spray the tubes with ethanol before moving them to the randomizing bin located under the Omni Bioruptor. After all surveillance samples have been moved to the randomizing bin, spray and wipe the sorting table with 70% ethanol. CLIA samples will be located in a designated bin in the CLIA processing area separate from the surveillance samples. Only CLIA dedicated equipment should be used to process CLIA samples. Remove the samples from the randomizing bin and place them into the Omni Bioruptor. Ensure that the machine is balanced and that the rotor is in place before screwing the lid on. Lower the clear case to cover the rotor and samples. Ensure that the settings on the display screen are correct. That is 45 seconds at 6 meters per second. Then press the ready button to initiate the bead beating process. Clean Bioruptor after use. Once the samples have been disrupted, they are now ready to be centrifuged. Unload specimen collection tubes from the Bioruptor and place them into a benchtop centrifuge. If the centrifuge is being used, leave the tubes in the Bioruptor rack and place them in the area on the table marked disrupted. Ensure that at least 4 samples are placed in the centrifuge at any given time. Secure the centrifuge screw lid over the balanced samples. Spin samples at 10,000 RPM for 3 minutes. Once the samples have been centrifuged, they are now ready to be scanned and organized into racks. To scan the samples, open and save a new Excel file from the appropriate template on a computer in the lab. Include the date and the CLIA or surveillance session number. In the tab named Metadata, enter the operator information and the necessary information into the required fields. Next, go to the tab named Session List. There you will see a pre-made sheet with each row labeled A1 through H6. Select A1, then use the electronic scanner to scan the barcode that is on the specimen tube. The barcode should then appear on the Excel worksheet. Check that the scanned barcode matches the barcode on the specimen tube. If this is correct, enter the initials written on the specimen tube. If there are no initials, click on the drop-down box in the Acceptance tab. Select No Initials, then place the sample in the corresponding location in the rack. If scanning CLIA samples, additional information is required. You'll need to select the information that corresponds to the identity of the sample from the drop-down menu. If the specimen came from an earlier surveillance session and is now being CLIA tested, record the original surveillance session number under Original Session. When the rack has been filled with samples, place the rack in the hood with the Integra robot to be used before uncapping the specimen tubes. Once the specimen tubes have been placed into the hood, remove the first column of the rack and begin removing the caps in a direction that prevents your hands from passing over any uncapped tubes. Discard each cap into the biohazard bag located in the hood after uncapping each tube. Remove 150 to 200 microliters of sample from overfilled specimen tubes. Change your top glove after uncapping the tubes in each rack. Before running the Integra robot, load a new box of tips into the Integra Assist Plus tip slot. To do so, remove the tip box from the packaging and place it into the hood. Once in the hood, open the lid of the box and leave it attached to the tip box so that it is furthest from the robot. Add the metal rack number 1, then subsequent racks numbers 2 through 5, containing the saliva specimen tubes to slot B on the Integra robot such that the A1 position is in the top and back left. To open a new package of 96 well plates, spray packaging with 70% ethanol, then wipe with a Kim wipe before placing into the hood. Open the packaging inside the hood with the open side of the wells facing downwards. Only touch the sides of the plate when handling, and do not pass your hands over the uncovered plate. Place a new labeled 96 deep well plate into slot C of the Integra Assist Plus, ensuring that the A1 position is in the top left corner. At this time, the Integra robot is ready to be run. Additional training will be done on how to program the robot. Once the Integra robot has completed transferring samples from the rack onto the plate, the specimen tubes are ready to be recapped and placed into storage boxes. See the protocol for organizing CLIA and non-CLIA samples into storage boxes. Change gloves after capping samples from each rack. CLIA boxes are stored in the fridge and non-CLIA samples are placed on the designated shelf for storage. Once rack 5 has been completed and a full plate has been made, cover the plate using a 96 well plate adhesive film and store in the refrigerator. Before leaving the lab at the end of the day, all hoods should be cleaned thoroughly. To clean the hood, spray with 10% bleach, then wipe the entire hood using a Kim wipe. Next, spray the hood using 70% ethanol, then wipe the hood again. Make sure to discard the dirty biohazard trash bag and replace it with a new one. Turn the UV on for at least 20 minutes with the hood closed. Leave the area as UV light can cause damage to the eyes and skin. During downtime and at the end of the day, clean the Omni Bioruptor as well as the microcentrifuge rotor with 70% ethanol using Kim wipes. The rotor should be removed from the centrifuge for thorough cleaning. Press the off switch located at the back of the centrifuge when leaving the lab at the end of the day. The biohazard boxes should be removed from the lab once they are halfway filled. To discard biohazard waste, twist, then tape the open end of the red biohazard bag that is inside of the box. Once securely taped, close and tape the box. Filled boxes should then be taken to the designated area by the loading dock and replaced with new biohazard boxes containing a biohazard bag. Before exiting the lab, hang your lab coat in the designated area, remove gloves, protective eyewear, and wash hands thoroughly.